society that let us build homes for our people, and then our people should now move to those particular homes and leave the land to be tilled or to be used for agricultural use. Mr. Speaker, on that note, Mr. Speaker, and we have seen so many areas, Mr. Speaker, which have exercised the same wisdom. Countries like US, UK, Russia, and so many other countries, Mr. Speaker, they actually put people in one settlement area and leave the rest of the land to be tilled, either by the government or by the people themselves. Mr. Speaker, if we were to follow the same concept, Mr. Speaker, our country can be food secure. We can have proper land that can be used for tilling, for agricultural use, for livestock keeping, and many other activities, Mr. Speaker. So I wish to support the member for introducing this particular motion. To say, Mr. Speaker, as we are building homes, Mr. Speaker, let us also give support to these, to the construction of homes. Let us give support to the president. Let us continue contributing towards building of these homes, and let us ensure that those homes are owned by the people, those very people from the lower cadre of the society. Let us not leave these homes to be bought or to be owned by the rich in this country. Let us ensure these homes are owned by those people who deserve to own homes and those people who do not have homes. Mr. Speaker, I thank and I support.
Nairobi, a broadcast that is brought to you by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in partnership with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. A warm welcome to you, and we are glad that you are joining us for these proceedings. Good morning. My name is Kamche Menza. Now, currently on your screens, that is inside the National Assembly chambers. I've spotted just a few members already inside, and we should be expecting to see more members making their way inside, of course, to get ready for the business that is lined up for consideration this morning. And also, in a few, we should be expecting the procession of the Speaker making its way into the chambers. So as we wait for that, we shall take a look at the business that is coming up for consideration this morning. Most
Guru, and from Nakuru will be has happened 30 years after. Between Kericho and Nakuru now you only get concrete. They are buildings. And these were areas which initially were called, some were calling them White Highlands or whatever. But in the Swinnerton arrangement, they were called scheduled lands. All these were scheduled lands. They were scheduled in terms of they were regulated. There was a manner in which how things were supposed to be done. We have failed in this. As a nation, we have failed in this as a government. I was talking about lessons. There's nowhere in the world, whether it's capitalist, whether it is communist, that people settle the way we settle here in this country, the way we settle in Africa. where one wakes up and settles anywhere they want. I think that's not anywhere. Land is private in many other places, yes. It is public in many other places, yes, but it's regulated. It is placed in a manner that, no, this is clearly demarcated for farmland, this is demarcated, whether you have it as a private person, but so long as it is zoned, and your land is in a zoned area that is supposed to be for farming, it has to remain farming. You can't go there and start doing your own things. And that's why sometimes, even in the UK, sometimes it's not very easy for anybody to get on the farmlands, because for you to qualify as a farmer, you must have a basic diploma in agriculture. Yeah? So here, we are talking about farming, and everybody is running around in their farms doing all manner of things. But there must be some control. There must be some kind of a regulation. Mr. Speaker, when we get to a situation where we have to import food, I think it's good to look for aid in any manner. Look for food, look for support on all manner of different things. But immediately you go begging for food, I think there must be something that is very wrong. And that's the situation we are getting into from time to time. It's a clear mark that in the last 3 years or 2, there's been quite a bit of support in terms of the agricultural sector. And particularly this year and last year, I think there's quite a bit of production. But this may not be permanent. This is being facilitated by different things other than land. It has been facilitated by the support of the government in terms of subsidies. It was not subsidy on land. Land, we keep subdividing it. And even when we'll be going ahead and looking for issues of how to subsidize farmers, you'll only be subsidizing them, but the land sizes are getting smaller. So that by the end of the day, even when you subsidize, subsidy will not make sense. So Mr. Speaker, I think this is an area, and of course, immediately you keep subdividing land. The basic agriculture, the agriculture 4K club of class 3, class 4, immediately you keep subdividing. You can't even rotate your crops. You can't do basic things that are required in agriculture, Mr. Speaker. So I think as a country and as a government, it is high time we got back to see exactly how to deal with what we call absolute land holdings in this country, because this is where the mess is. And if you don't do it, we are headed to a direction that is not sustainable. We are going to be staring at hunger. We are going to be staring at a situation where we have to be importing food from time to time, Mr. Speaker. It's important that the government learns, if they have not learned this before, that somebody steps up. Chair Housing has alluded to this. And I think it's important that somebody takes care of, particularly the ministry, so that we come up with a proper legislation, not even an amendment as you are suggesting, a proper legislation in terms of issues to do with land use. What the government is doing in terms of affordable housing is a good answer to very many of these things. But to what extent will it be realized in terms of how they spread out? You know, the people in the rural areas, some of them are still thinking that, no, this is not meant for us. But the idea is, can we move to where we can settle in some kind of community? Then we leave the rest of the land for other useful economic purposes. So, Mr. Speaker, I really think that something must be done, and it has to start from the ministry. So that a proper legislation is brought and followed by a proper regulation, so that we see how to regulate particularly private lands that are under absolute ownership. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well said. The member for Kandui, Honorable John Makali.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to also weigh in on this motion. At the outset, let me thank my colleague and member for Westlands, Honorable Timo Wanyonyi, for bringing this motion. Mr. Speaker, it is not denied that land is such a critical and valued asset in our communities. It is not also denied that at the moment where we are, we have a lot of problems touching on how we use our land. Taking into effect the importance of land, the Constitution of Kenya and the framers of the Constitution dedicated a whole chapter to issues of land use, to issues of land, classified land, and they gave responsibilities to this House to develop rules and regulations and legislation to bring into effect the provisions that are in the land chapter in the Constitution. This motion seeks to have a policy framework that will regulate land use. The first question I asked myself, Honorable Speaker, is do we have a policy framework or we don't? My answer to it, outright speaker, is that we have a policy framework. What we need to do is literally to revisit it and ask ourselves, is the policy framework in force serving us very well or not serving us very well? We take cognizance of the fact that agriculture contributes around 22% of our gross domestic product. Many of our people are employed in the agricultural sector. When we make our budgets here, we dedicate a lot of resources, though not sufficient, towards agricultural development. But if we look at our country, we have had so many cases, we have had disputes. When you go back to our courts, you'll find a lot of disputes touching on ownership of land and issues of inheritance. That's why we have created the environment and land courts, taking into cognizance the importance of land. We have had many succession disputes in our courts on how land needs to be utilized, how land needs to be used. The question we need to ask ourselves is, are we on the right path or we are not on the right path? Kenya's land, 17%, is only 17% of Kenya's land mass that is arable land. And at independence, we committed ourselves to fighting hunger. The Asian tigers, specifically Malaysia, have reached where they have reached because of having proper land use programs. I support this motion that we need as a house to go back and as a ministry, or not only the Ministry of Land and Urban and Physical Planning, but in conjunction with the Ministry of Agriculture, which is charged with the purposes of developing agriculture in our country, so that we can have a proper policy framework that will assist us in having proper land use programs in our country. In so doing, we will not be reinventing the wheel. Honorable Speaker, you remember we used to have the Land Control Act that was geared towards, when the approvals of land development were to be given, we had to go through a committee, a land control board that was actually to do the approvals. But what happened to those boards? I think they were politicized, they never got to do their work. And the urge that was there was basically anybody wanting to develop land, the approvals were being given in boardrooms. No regard was being had to the development somebody was going to do on the land. That's why you have a place like in Western Kenya, you'll not find somebody who has a whole 10 acres. Lands have been fragmented into small portions of 50 by 100, which cannot be economically used. So, Mr. Speaker, I actually support this particular motion, that we need to have a relook of the entire legislations we have and the regulations we have towards land use, so that we can be able to have a way forward. Because if we do not, we are threatened, we're not going to have proper food security. Every now and then somebody buys land, you will find that somebody wants to go and, there's this obsession of brick and mortar and concrete. We want to go and develop and put up structures. Nobody is thinking about setting aside land for purposes of agricultural development. And even in those areas where land had been specifically set aside for agricultural development, like the ADC farms in Kitale, in Trans Nzoia, for example, you'll find they have actually been encroached on by, land grabbers, and we now don't have any sufficient parcels for agricultural development. And this is not only for agricultural development. We must also begin to move aside and set aside land for, like what he has put up in the motion for well-built environment, like what we are doing now in developing affordable housing, so that we can be able to safeguard land for purposes of agricultural development. So they can have places set aside for residents, places set aside for agricultural development, so that we can be a food secure nation. Honorable Speaker, I actually support this motion. It's well thought out. And we need also, as we move on, because Article 66, the chapter on land in the Constitution of Kenya, has literally classified land into three groups: public land, community land, and private land. When we were in school doing our land law, we were saying the absolute proprietorship title was a title for abuse and disabuse. So we need also to relook into it and do a lot of sensitization, that even if you have an absolute title, it is not absolute in the sense that you can do really anything you want upon it. We need to do a lot of sensitization, so that say we must have planned development for the sake of our country and the sake of future generations. With those remarks, Honorable Speaker, I support this motion and urge that this House passes it. Thank you.
The Honorable Mutunga, you're going to speak after the Honorable Karoli and the Honorable Githinji. That is how it appears on my board. So allow them to have their chance first. So this chance is for the Honorable Karoli. I'm looking at the board. Nobody got I got a bill. I'm seeing you got a bill to move. So this chance is for Honorable Karoli Omondi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I rise to support the motion. I think it is time that we have genuine debate on our land use patterns. What worries me most is the lack of coherence across the country as to how urban planning or even peri-urban planning or agricultural land is being used in this country. The laws are there, but something seems to be missing. So I've always wondered, what is it that we need to do that could help us even plan better? But it is surprising that even with the devolution, most county governments have not even come with proper urban planning for their business centers within the counties. Nairobi, of course, is already a mess. It is very clear, even if you look at the developments that we have here in the city, where apartment blocks deny each other the right to sunshine, which is a recognized constitutional right under our laws. And you have someone's sitting room facing the toilet of the other. And you have high-rise buildings that, frankly speaking, in 20 years will be concrete slums, because we have seen that from experience in other jurisdictions. When the lifts break down and the people can't maintain the utilities around those construction sites. But this urban nightmare is not as profound as what will happen in the rural areas, where agricultural land has actually been reduced significantly to a point that the issue of food security or food insecurity is now an issue of major concern to us. I don't think many areas of this country today have farmers who can practice mechanized farming on 100 acres or 200 acres for any particular crop. Even the basket county of Uasin Gishu, either due to polygamy or to lack of commercial acumen, those who are doing 10,000 acres 5 years ago are now down to 5. Those who are doing 5 are down to 3. Those who are doing 3 are down to 1. Those who are doing 1 are down to 500. Basically, we are staring at a very uncertain future in terms of food security because of our land use patterns. And until and unless we appreciate this and embrace socio-cultural changes that are so essential, we can pass many laws, but if in our minds we are not ready to lead the modern urban life, I think we are staring at disaster in the making. There's not enough land in many areas for food production. And even the little that there is quickly being turned into concrete jungle. But the people who have really taken care of our environment well, the pastoralist communities, are also facing an existential threat now. Because the group ranches have all disappeared, the lands have been subdivided, the free movement of cattle has been curtailed, and we are staring at, again, a very heavy socioeconomic disruption to the economic activities. And that is why every time the big land grabbers that we know, the politicians, take huge parcels of land among the pastoralists, as soon as they lose power, the farms are invaded, the fences are cut, people are back. You can see it down here in Maimahiu. And I think it is going to happen in many places. So we need to look at this thing, both from urban planning setup, but also agricultural production, and see that we secure ourselves and also deal with potential areas that will bring social unrest, especially among the pastoralist communities. Because what is happening in Kajiado, in Narok, in parts of Samburu, Laikipia, is not a recipe for peace, but for warfare. And over time, we will come to face that reality. And it is also in Tana River. where communities that have really protected the environment, whose cultural practices and livelihoods have protected our environment, are now literally being uprooted from their homeland and being subjected to subdivision of land that is inimical to their interests, that is not helping them be food sufficient. And